Last night, Julia followed her husband into the forest, and what she saw under the moonlight was not human. Tonight, you'll learn the secret she was never supposed to see. The Miami night had a way of swallowing people whole, pulling them into its neon haze, shaking them, spinning them, and spitting them back out at dawn like nothing ever happened. But that night, something entered the city that didn't belong to any world humans knew. Julia didn't know that, of course. To her, it was just another shift at Solaris, the upscale nightclub sitting right on the edge of downtown. The kind of place where the music thumped hard enough to make your ribs vibrate and where every table glowed with LED rims and overpriced champagne. She had worked there long enough to read people the second they walked in. Tourists pretending to be rich, rich men pretending to be gods, and lonely people pretending not to be lonely. But around 11 p.m., she felt something she had never felt before. A sensation, not a sound, not a sight, just a pressure, like the air thickened for a moment. Like something enormous had entered the room without touching the door. She paused mid-step on the stage, her fingers sliding down the chrome pole as she scanned the crowd. Nothing looked different. Nothing looked wrong. But something felt wrong. Something felt aware. She brushed it off as stress or maybe too much Red Bull. But the feeling didn't go away. It intensified. And then the club doors opened. He walked in like he owned the silence inside the noise. A man in a charcoal gray suit so clean and sharp it almost reflected the lights. His skin was pale. Not sickly pale but cold pale, like moonlight against metal. And his eyes. Julia would later swear those eyes were the first thing that told her her life was splitting into before and after. They weren't glowing, not really. But something in them picked up the neon lights differently, like glass with a pulse. He didn't look at the dancers. He didn't look at the bartenders. He didn't look around nervously like someone unfamiliar with nightlife. He moved with a slow, deliberate calm, as if he had been here 1,000 times across 1,000 years. Julia tried to convince herself she wasn't staring. But she was. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The stranger walked toward an empty VIP table near the back corner. No hesitation. No curiosity. He simply sat, placed a black card on the table, and folded his hands like he was waiting. Not for service, not for a drink, but for someone. The servers noticed him first. The way he tipped. A single swipe of the card followed by a number so big it made the bartender blink twice. The DJ noticed him next. Not because he danced or reacted, but because he didn't. He was still. Too still. Like he was conserving energy for something far bigger than being human. Then finally, Julia noticed him again, because he was looking at her. Not in a flirty way. Not in the way men looked at dancers with half-baked fantasies and wallets full of regret. No, this man's gaze felt ancient, calculated. Like he wasn't admiring her, he was studying her, measuring something, searching for something. She told herself to ignore it, to keep dancing, to stay professional. But the longer he watched, the colder the room felt. At one point, a gust of cold air brushed past her legs, and she shivered so hard she almost missed a step. The AC had always been unpredictable, but this felt different. Localized, like a cold breath on the back of her neck. Still, she finished her set and made her way off stage, but the feeling followed her. It stuck to her skin, crawled beneath it, settled into her spine like a whisper. Julia walked past the VIP section, intending to head backstage, but the man lifted his gaze again. Slowly, intentionally, and for a split second she froze. She didn't know why she stopped. She didn't know why she felt obligated to acknowledge him. But something about him compelled her to move closer, like gravity had shifted. And that was the moment, though she wouldn't understand it until much later, when her life stepped off its normal track and began moving towards something ancient, dangerous, and entirely non-human. She hadn't even spoken to him yet. She didn't even know his name, but the night had already chosen its path. And Julia was already too close to turn back. First contact and the unsettling charm. Julia didn't usually approach customers unless they called for her. Solaris was the kind of club where boundaries mattered. Men could watch, flirt, even fantasize, but the dancers kept their distance unless invited. It was safer that way, cleaner, more controlled. But tonight felt different. As she walked past the VIP corner again, the stranger's eyes followed her in a way that was neither predatory nor flirtatious. It was too controlled, too focused, too knowing. She paused. Not because she meant to, but because something inside her stilled. A thin shiver ran along her shoulders. He didn't speak. He didn't gesture. He just watched. And somehow that was enough to pull her toward him. Julia forced a smile, smoothing a lock of hair behind her ear as she approached the VIP table. "Hey, everything okay here? You need anything?" The man lifted his gaze, and for a moment Julia felt like she was standing inside a refrigerator. His eyes weren't glowing, not literally, but they had depth, an unnatural kind of clarity that made it hard to look away. Then he spoke. His voice was low and calm, but there was a strange rhythm to it, like he didn't speak English often, yet somehow mastered it perfectly. "Yes," he said slowly. "I need a moment of your time." Julia blinked. Clients usually demanded drinks, dances, attention, not a moment. But she nodded politely. "Sure. What can I help you with?" Instead of answering, he reached into his jacket and placed a black card on the table. Not a regular bank card. Not even a high-end Amex. A matte black, unbranded card with no numbers, no logo, just a faint metallic shimmer when the lights hit it. "Use this," he said quietly, "for whatever you need tonight." Julia frowned. "You're giving me your card?" "Yes." He gestured lightly. "It is yours. For tonight." Her instinct kicked in. "This is weird. Too weird. Back away, Julia." But another part of her, the part that fought rent every month, the part that worried about hospital bills, the part that grew up counting coins, silenced that instinct. Thank you," she managed. He nodded just once, as if relieved she didn't question it. As she examined the card, something shifted in her peripheral vision. A shadow stretched across the floor beside him, longer, wider, wrong. The shadow didn't match his posture. It didn't even look human. Julia blinked hard, and the moment she focused again, the shadow snapped back to normal. She laughed awkwardly. "Solaris needs better lighting. This place makes you see things." The man tilted his head slightly, as if amused. "Light reveals many truths, often more than people are comfortable with." That sentence shouldn't have crawled under her skin. But it did. Before she could reply, the DJ switched tracks, and the bass vibrated through the club. The crowd cheered. A server passed by with a tray of champagne, and the man lifted a finger, just one finger. The server froze mid-step, eyes widening as the screen of his post terminal chimed. Julia watched the screen light up. The tip displayed $3,500. "For one glass," the server stuttered. The man gave a small nod, then looked back at Julia as if nothing odd had happened. Julia swallowed hard. "Okay," she said, voice slightly shaky. "That's generous." "It is only the beginning," he replied. Her pulse flickered. "The beginning of what?" "Of what I came here to find." The way he said it made Julia's breath catch, as if he wasn't talking about the club, or the city, or even money. Before she could pry, Sonia appeared beside her, eyes widening as she noticed the black card. "Girl, what is that?" Sonia whispered. "His," Julia whispered back. Sonia's eyes widened even more. "And he gave it to you? That thing looks like it could buy a small island." Julia forced a laugh. "Don't be dramatic." But even she didn't believe her own words. Kem joined them seconds later, wiping her hands on a bar towel from her shift. "What's going on? Why are you girls?" Then Kem saw the stranger. Her smile dropped instantly. Julia watched her friend's expression twist. Not in recognition, but in instinctive fear. Kem wasn't easily intimidated. She was the level-headed one, the grounded one. The woman could walk through a back alley at midnight and not flinch. But when she looked at the stranger, her posture tightened. Her eyes narrowed. Julia saw her friend's gaze slide past him, toward the mirrored panel behind his seat. And then Kem blanched. "What?" Julia asked quietly. Kem swallowed and whispered, "His reflection, it—" But when Julia turned, the reflection looked normal. Kem took a step back. "Never mind. Maybe the glass is warped." The stranger finally spoke again, shifting his gaze from Julia to her two friends. "You may both go," he said calmly. "I only need her." Sonia giggled nervously. "Oh, sure. We'll just—" But Kem didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on him. "What do you want with her?" The air between them tightened. Julia felt her chest constrict. Kem was never confrontational. Not like this. The stranger didn't even blink. "What I have waited for. That is all." Kem grabbed Julia's arm. "You don't owe him anything. Not a conversation. Not your time. Nothing." The man tilted his head slightly, studying Kem as if she were a curious insect. "You sense things others do not," he murmured. "But you are mistaken tonight." Kem's breath trembled. "I'm not mistaken. Something about you is wrong." The man slowly turned his attention back to Julia. "You will understand soon," he said softly. "Everything has been arranged." Julia's heart thudded. "Arranged? By who?" He gave her a faint, unsettling smile. "By time." And before she could ask anything else, he stood up with fluid grace, like his body weighed nothing. "I will return for you," he said, voice cold and certain. "Be ready." Julia was left standing frozen, clutching the black card, unsure whether she had just been chosen or marked. The gift and the shift in Julia's life. Julia didn't sleep much that night, or rather, she slept, but her sleep didn't feel like rest. Felt like floating, like drifting through a dark current that whispered her name in voices she didn't recognize. When she woke, the black card lay on her bedside table, its surface matte and silent, absorbing the morning light instead of reflecting it. She picked it up. No name, no numbers, not even a bank logo, just darkness. She brushed her thumb across the smooth surface. A soft vibration hummed under her skin. Not mechanical, not electrical, almost organic. It made her pull her hand back. She told herself it was imagination, a trick of nerves, a leftover tremor from the stranger's presence. But as she got ready for work, the card kept catching her eye, like it wanted her to touch it again. At Solaris, the atmosphere felt different. People still danced. The music still roared. Drinks still flowed like liquid neon. But to Julia, the club felt aware, like it was watching her the way the stranger did. Sonia rushed toward her the second she arrived. "Girl, is he coming back tonight? Or was he some kind of billionaire ghost that only appears once every century?" Julia rolled her eyes, though her pulse reacted to the word ghost. "I don't know if he's coming back. He didn't exactly give me a schedule." "He looked like the kind of man who doesn't need schedules," Sonia said dramatically. "He is a schedule." Julia laughed, but it sounded hollow. Kem joined them, arms crossed. "Did you bring the card?" Julia hesitated. "Yeah. Let me see it." Julia handed it over. Kem held it up to the light and frowned. "This card absorbs light," Kem murmured. "What does that even mean?" Sonia scoffed. "It means it's weird." Kem turned the card at different angles. "Also, look, no magnetic strip. No chip. No anything." Julia took it back quickly. "Maybe it's one of those ultra-private banking cards for billionaires." Kem shook her head. "Even those have something. This looks more like an access key." That word, key, landed heavily in Julia's stomach. He returned at exactly 11:11 p.m., just like the night before. Not early, not late, not rushed. Exactly on time, as if he stepped out of a clock rather than a car. The doors opened, and the cold draft hit the club again. Julia felt it wrap around her ankles, spiraling upward like a warning. People turned, whispered. Some stepped aside instinctively, giving him room without knowing why. This time, he didn't go to the VIP table. He walked straight toward Julia. Every dancer paused. Every server froze. Even the DJ glanced down nervously. The stranger stopped just 2 feet in front of her. "Julia," he said simply. Her name sounded different in his mouth. longer, older, like it came from a century that didn't exist anymore. She forced a small smile. You came back. Yes. He studied her face as though reading invisible symbols beneath her skin. I told you I would. She tried to gather her confidence. So, what exactly do you want from me? His lips curved slightly. Not a smile. Something else. I want you to live the life you were meant to live. Her stomach tightened. And that life is... what exactly? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Midnight black, matching the card. For a second, Julia thought it might be jewelry, but the shape looked wrong. Flatter, heavier. When he opened it, the box revealed a slender, metallic bracelet, delicate yet unervingly durable. Silver, but not any silver she had ever seen. Almost liquid in appearance. It is yours, he said. Wear it. Julia blinked. Why? It will help you. And protect you. Her breath caught. Protect me from what? He paused for half a heartbeat, then said softly, everything. That should have terrified her. And maybe it did. But something else happened first. She felt warmth radiating from the bracelet, spreading through her chest like a soothing wave. Try it, he murmured. She hesitated, but her fingers moved anyway. The moment the bracelet snapped shut around her wrist, a pulse shot through her arm. Not painful, just powerful. Like something waking up inside her blood. Sonia gasped. Kem stepped back. What the hell was that? Kem whispered. Julia shook her wrist. It's cold and warm at the same time. It suits you, the stranger said quietly. His voice had softened, just a fraction, but enough for Julia to feel something shift between them. Something she didn't understand. Something she might never understand. He watched her like she was an awakening. Every movement she made, every breath she took. She finally asked the question she had been avoiding. What's your name? He blinked once. Doha. Doha, she repeated. The name tasted strange on her tongue. Ancient, heavy, beautiful in a dangerous way. Kem stepped forward again, braver now. Okay, Doha. What exactly is your relationship with Julia supposed to be? He didn't turn, didn't even acknowledge Kem's presence. He kept his eyes on Julia. Everything I do, he said, is for her. The music dropped. A beat of silence filled the club, thick as fog. Julia's heart pounded. Sonia looked ready to faint. Kem looked ready to fight. Doha leaned slightly closer, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the cold air around him. This world has not been kind to you, he whispered. Let me change that. His words hit something deep inside her. A buried ache she never admitted. The ache of disappointment, of exhaustion, of years spent surviving instead of living. She asked quietly, why me? Doha's expression softened in a way that felt wrong. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Because, he murmured, I have known you much longer than you have known me. Her breath froze. What does that mean? You will understand, he said softly. In time. And just like that, everything in Julia's life shifted. The black card, the bracelet, his visits, the coldness, the strange, ancient familiarity. Whatever force he carried, whatever world he came from, it had already chosen her. And she didn't realize, not yet, that nothing in her life from this moment forward would ever be human again. The house, the coldness, and the first real fear. Julia didn't expect him to show up again the next night. But just like the previous evenings, Doha appeared at exactly 11:11 p.m. An eerie consistency that should have alarmed her more than it did. Maybe it was the bracelet calming her nerves, or maybe it was the money, the attention, the sudden shift in her life. Whatever it was, Julia found herself waiting for him before she even realized she was doing it. When he walked into Solaris again, everything inside the nightclub seemed to tilt. Lights dimmed for a second, the temperature dropped several degrees, and the music seemed to echo strangely before normalizing. Even the regulars noticed. Dude, every time he comes in here, the AC goes crazy, a bartender muttered. It's Miami, another shrugged. AC's always broken. But Kem didn't shrug. Kem stared. And Julia caught the look. Fear wrapped in certainty. Tonight, Doha didn't linger. He approached Julia immediately, moving with that same fluid grace that made him look weightless. "Come with me," he said. Not a request. A direction. A decision already made. Julia swallowed. "Right now? I'm still on shift. It's already been handled." He glanced toward the manager's booth. And somehow, impossibly, her manager was waving her off with a grin and a thumbs up. Sonia stared at the scene with her jaw dropped. What kind of power does he have? Sonia whispered, but Julia's stomach twisted. "I don't know." Doha extended his hand, not touching her, just offering space for her to follow. She did. The ride. They stepped into a sleek black car parked outside. Not a flashy car, nothing showy. Just a machine so clean and polished it looked almost unreal under the street lamps. Inside, the temperature was freezing. Not cool. Not luxury AC cold. But winter cold. Breath-visible cold. Julia rubbed her arms. "Is your AC broken or something?" "No," he answered. "I prefer it this way." She tried to joke. "Well, now I know you're not from Miami." Doha didn't laugh. He simply looked forward as he drove. As if he didn't need roads or GPS or even logic to find his way. They left the neon chaos of downtown behind and drove into quieter, richer neighborhoods where the streets were lined with palm trees and manicured lawns. Homes that belonged to people who didn't check price tags. But Doha didn't stop there. He drove further, into a gated community with security posts and cameras that seemed to scan more than just license plates. Yet as soon as the guards saw him, every barrier lifted instantly, mechanically, without question. Julia blinked. "Do they know you?" "They know not to question what they don't understand." That sentence clung to her ribs like a hook. She watched the gated world roll past the window. Houses too perfect, too quiet, too symmetrical. But when Doha slowed, he didn't stop at a mansion overflowing with luxury. He stopped at a house that was beautiful, yes, elegant, modern, but strangely isolated. It sat slightly apart from the others, with more space, more trees, more darkness surrounding it. The way the outdoor lights glowed made the shadows behind them feel deeper, as if something invisible lived in the gaps. Doha parked the car and stepped out. Julia followed, her breath catching when she saw the house up close. "Why are we here?" she asked softly. His voice lowered. "Because this is for you." "What do you mean, for me?" He turned to her, and for the first time his expression softened, almost human. "The deed is in your name." Those words didn't feel real. "What?" "Doha, no, that's not possible. You can't just—" "I can," he said calmly. "And I did." Julia stepped back, overwhelmed. "This house must cost more than anything I've ever seen." "Yes. Why would you give it to me?" "You will understand," he murmured. "In time." Inside the house, when he opened the front door, a wave of cold air spilled out. Colder than the car, colder than the outside, colder than anything she had felt. Julia hugged herself. "Why is it freezing?" "The house is reacting," he said. "To what?" "To you." Those words should have made her run. But the house was beautiful, glass walls, minimalist furniture, expensive floors that felt soft under her heels. Everything elegant, everything curated, everything waiting. As she walked deeper inside, the lights flickered. Just once, but enough to make her turn. "Do you live here?" she asked. "No." "Who lived here before this?" "No one." She frowned. "You mean it's newly built?" Doha looked around as though he wasn't examining the architecture, but sensing it. "No. It is simply not meant for others." A chill ran down her spine. Something is watching. Julia wandered into the living room. The space was huge, with tall ceilings and wide glass panels looking out to the backyard. Palms rustled outside, but the shadows seemed to move against the wind. A lamp flickered again, longer this time. She turned to Doha. "Did you see that?" "Yes." "Is something wrong with the wiring?" "No." He said it like the question itself was meaningless. Julia's pulse quickened. She looked back at the shadows outside. A neighbor's dog barked suddenly, sharp, panicked, frenzied. It pulled at its leash, straining away from the yard separating their homes. The moment Doha stepped closer to the glass, the dog shrieked and ran behind a pillar, hiding. Julia stared at him. Why is it so scared of you? Animals perceive what humans ignore. That's not an answer. He stepped closer, and the air grew colder. It is the only one you need right now. The first real fear. Something inside Julia finally cracked. A thin line of dread slithering beneath her bones. Doha, what are you? She whispered. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Ancient, wounded, longing, dangerous, familiar. I am what I must be, he said softly. And you are the one I have chosen. Julia's knees weakened. She grabbed the back of the couch to steady herself. I think I want to go home. You are home. No, she whispered. My real home. Doha stepped closer. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something older. You are safe here, he said gently. Safer than anywhere else. It wasn't comforting. It was a warning. A beautiful, elegant, cold warning. Julia didn't sleep that night. Not a chance. Because for the first time, she wasn't just overwhelmed. She was afraid. Engagement and the missing background. Julia tried to adjust to the idea of the house, but the night after seeing it, she barely slept. Her dreams were strange and heavy, filled with shifting shadows, slithering sounds, and ancient whispers she couldn't translate. When she woke, the bracelet on her wrist felt colder, tighter, like it was responding to her fear. By the next evening, she felt the exhaustion pressing beneath her eyes like bruises. Still, she went to Solaris. She needed the distraction. She needed noise, people, lights, something that felt human. But as soon as she entered the club, she felt the air change. It wasn't cold this time. No, it was expectant. Sonia and Kem were already backstage, whispering intensely. When they saw Julia, Sonia lit up like a sparkler. Girl, he's here again. And he brought something. Something big. Something shiny. Kem didn't smile. Her brows pinched with concern. Julia, we need to talk. This is all moving too. But before she could finish, the lights dimmed, the music softened, and the double doors of the club slid open as if pushed by an invisible force. Doha stepped in. This time, everyone noticed. His presence felt heavier tonight, like gravity shifted around him. When he walked, people parted instinctively, stepping aside without realizing why. Conversations halted. Drinks paused mid-air. Even the DJ's hand froze above the mixer before he snapped out of it and resumed playing. Julia's heart stuttered. He looked different tonight. Same suit style, but with gold accents that shimmered like scales under the neon lights. And for the first time, fear blended with fascination inside her chest. Doha approached her directly. You look tired, he said softly. I didn't sleep much, she admitted. That will change soon. The certainty in his tone made her tense. Kem pulled Julia aside. Julia, please, ask him questions. Real questions. Who he is, where he comes from, what he wants. But Doha simply extended his hand. Not to Kem, not to the room, just to Julia. Come, he said. There is something I need to give you. She hesitated. Kem grabbed her arm, whispering urgently, Julia, you barely know him. Doha's gaze flicked to Kem. Not angry, but assessing. She is protective, he said. That is good. Then his attention returned to Julia. Will you trust me? It wasn't the words. It was the way he asked them. Soft, patient, yet with a weight that felt like an unspoken command. Julia exhaled shakily and followed him. The gift. He led her to a quiet alcove in the club, a corner stripped of noise, where the lights seemed to dim on their own. From his pocket, he retrieved a small velvet box. Midnight black, matching the bracelet, matching the card. Julia felt her pulse spike. Doha, what is that? Your future, he answered. He opened the box. Inside lay a diamond ring, massive, flawless, cut with an intricacy she'd never seen. It wasn't the ring of a rich man. It was the ring of something ancient, something that understood the value of symbols. Her breath caught. Doha, this is too much. It is not, he said. It is what is meant. I'm not ready for marriage, she said quietly. We barely. This is not marriage. Not yet. The shadows around them seemed to pulse as he closed the box halfway. It is a bond, promise, a recognition. She stared. Recognition of what? That you belong with me, he said. The phrasing made her freeze. Doha, where is your family? Wouldn't a moment like this, an engagement, be something they want to be part of? Doha held still. For the first time since she met him, his eyes darkened. Not politically, not dramatically, but with grief. Deep, centuries old, heavy. My family, he said slowly, is gone. I'm sorry, Julia whispered. How did? They were claimed by a force older than this world, he said simply. The words struck her like cold water. Claimed, not killed. A force older than this world. Not a disease. Not an accident. Julia's heart thumped painfully. Doha, please tell me the truth. Who are you really? He looked at her for a long time, and the silence between them thickened like fog. I cannot tell you yet, he said, but you will know soon. Very soon. Her pulse raced. And you want me to say yes without knowing? Yes. She shook her head. That's not how things work here, Doha. This world's rules do not apply to me. Those words shouldn't have made sense. And yet they felt too true. He stepped closer, his cold presence enfolding her like winter air. You fear the wrong things, he whispered. Fear what would happen if you refused me. Not because I would harm you, but because the world would. Julia's breath caught. What world? The one beneath this one, he murmured. Before she could respond, he bent his knee, not fully to the floor, but enough to mimic a proposal. Enough to draw gasps from everyone nearby. Julia, he said, accept this bond. Let me protect you. Let me give you everything this world denied. Her mind screamed no. Her instincts screamed run. Her heart whispered maybe. Her trauma whispered yes. She reached out just to touch the ring. Kem burst through the crowd. Julia, stop. Everyone turned. Doha stilled. His eyes sharpened. Kem grabbed Julia's hand. This isn't love. This isn't normal. Something's wrong with him. Doha rose slowly. Your friend sees shadows she cannot comprehend. Kem glared. Maybe, but I know danger when I see it. Doha didn't react with anger. He reacted with curiosity. You are perceptive, he said calmly, and that makes you vulnerable. Kem stiffened. Julia turned to chemistry. I just want to feel safe. He makes me feel. He makes you feel trapped. Kem snapped. Julia swallowed. The truth stung. Doha's voice cut through their tension like a blade wrapped in silk. Julia, he said softly, choose. Her breath trembled, and she chose. She slid the ring onto her finger. A cold rush shot through her arm, like liquid ice racing into her bloodstream. Her skin prickled. Her breath hitched. The room tilted slightly. Doha's smile returned, soft, controlled, knowing. It has begun, he whispered. Sonia gasped. Kem cursed under her breath. But it was too late. By the time Julia realized she should be afraid, the ring had already bound her to a world she didn't understand, and to a man who wasn't a man at all. Marriage and the nighttime disappearances. The engagement wasn't a private moment. It became an event. People at Solaris gasped, filmed, whispered, and speculated. Videos hit social media before Julia even took a full breath. Comments flooded in instantly. Who is this man? Where did he come from? That ring looks unreal. But as loud as the outside world became, inside Julia something grew painfully quiet. A hollow echo. A question with no shape, only weight. She didn't know him. Not really. Not beyond the gifts, the cold, the mystery. But she said yes. Doha handled everything else with impossible speed. Venue, paperwork, flowers, catering, musicians. Julia's family was given gifts, envelopes, excessive apologies for the rush, and a promise that their daughter would be protected, cherished, elevated. Her mother glowed with pride. Her father shook Doha's hand with both of his voice cracking as he thanked the man he believed was a blessing. Kem didn't attend the rehearsal dinner. She barely spoke to Julia. Sonia kept trying to smooth things over, saying, "Just let her cool off, Jules. She's worried. That's all." But worry wasn't the right word. Kem was scared of him, for Julia, and she wasn't quiet about it. The wedding, the ceremony was lavish but intimate. Exactly 20 guests, all handpicked by Doha. No extended family, no co-workers, no old friends. Only the closest members of Julia's life and a handful of people she had never met. People who looked too polished, too expressionless, too empty. They stood perfectly still during the vows, as if choreographed. Julia's hands trembled when Doha placed the ring on her finger. The cold sensation returned, sharp, instantaneous, a bolt of winter through her bloodstream. She swallowed a gasp. Doha leaned close, whispering, "Breathe. The bond is settling." Bond. She hated that word, but she forced a smile. The guests clapped. Music played. Champagne flowed. And yet, something was missing. Doha's smile never changed. Not once. His eyes blinked too little. His posture never slouched, never relaxed, never shifted naturally like a human's. Julia tried to shake it off. It's nerves, stress, stop overthinking. But then she noticed something else. Doha cast no shadow in certain angles where everyone else did. She froze, then blinked, and there it was again. A shadow. Normal. Perfect. Human. Her breath stuttered. "I'm imagining things. I'm tired." But it wouldn't be the last time she saw it. The first night. That evening. In their new home, Julia expected a honeymoon atmosphere. Warmth. Closeness. Some sense of normal romantic intimacy. Instead, she got distance. Literal distance. Doha paced outside on the balcony after sunset, never stepping fully into the moonlight. His silhouette flickered strangely at the edges. The house seemed colder with him inside it. Walls humming, floors creaking, lamps dimming. At 11:11 p.m. exactly, Doha walked to her calmly, kissed her forehead, and said, "I must leave for a while." Julia blinked. "What? Go where?" "I have obligations," he said. "Important ones." "Now? On our wedding night?" "Yes." She crossed her arms. "This is not normal, Doha." "Normal is irrelevant," he said gently. Then he put on his coat, despite the humid Miami night, and walked toward the door. "Don't wait for me," he said, and he left. Julia stood alone in the cold, silent house. The chandelier above her flickered twice, like a heartbeat stuttering. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. The mornings after, this became the routine. Every night at 11:11 p.m., Doha vanished. Every morning, he reappeared at sunrise, immaculate and calm. Julia tried to question him. "Where do you go every night?" "To handle business." "What kind of business?" "International matters," he said. "What kind? For which company?" He smiled softly. "You will know when you need to know." It wasn't an answer, but it was the only one she got. The bracelet grew colder each day. Sometimes she woke with a metallic taste in her mouth. Sometimes she felt the floor vibrate faintly beneath her feet at night, like something moved in the walls. She tried to follow him. He always knew. "You should be asleep," he said once, appearing behind her silently in the hallway. Her heart nearly exploded. I wasn't following you." "Yes, you were." His voice stayed calm, almost affectionate. "Curiosity is expected. But not yet. Not yet." Two words that hollowed out her stomach. The signs. After a week, the strange occurrences intensified. 1. The garden soil was disturbed every morning, like something had slithered across it. 2. The house remained freezing despite the thermostat being set high. 3. The vents hissed at night, softly, rhythmic, almost like breathing. 4. Doha's reflection glitched in the bathroom mirror. Just for half a second, but she saw it. His eyes reptilian. His jaw extended too far. His skin shifting. She screamed. He rushed to her side instantly. "What did you see?" he asked softly. "Nothing," she lied. He stared at her far too long. Then he whispered, "You are beginning to see the truth." Kem's warning. Kem finally confronted her at a cafe, grabbing her hands desperately. "Julia, listen to me. I don't know what he is, but he's not human. He's something else. Something cold. Something old. I feel it every time he's around." Julia pulled her hands away. "Stop. Look at you," Kem hissed. "You're pale. You're shaking. You barely sleep. You flinch at shadows. This ring." She grabbed Julia's hand. "It's hurting you." "No," Julia whispered. "It's just adjusting." "Julia, you're the one adjusting. To him. To whatever he is." Julia almost broke. Almost admitted the truth. That she was terrified. That she felt watched even when he wasn't home. That the house breathed. That the shadows whispered. But she couldn't. Because the bond, the ring, pulsed coldly against her skin every time she considered telling the truth. That night, at 11:11 p.m., Doha stood at the doorway again. "I have to go," he said. Julia whispered, "Where?" He leaned closer, brushing her cheek with a cold fingertip. "Into the dark," he murmured, "where I belong." And this time, before leaving, he smiled. But the smile wasn't human. Not at all. The supernatural reveals itself. Julia started to lose track of time. Days blurred. Nights lasted longer than they should. The temperature in the house dropped so often that she kept blankets in every room, though Doha never touched one. Every morning, she woke with the same lingering feeling, that she had dreamed something important but couldn't remember it. Something crawling beneath her consciousness, like a whisper she couldn't hold on to. Even the house felt alive. It wasn't just the cold or the flickering lights anymore. It was the sense that walls breathed, that shadows waited, that something followed her down hallways, close enough for her to hear the faint scrape of scales. She kept turning around suddenly, certain someone was behind her. No one ever was, but she felt them, every time. The mirror incident. It happened on a Thursday night. Doha had left at exactly 11:11 p.m., as always. Julia tried to distract herself by taking a long shower, letting hot water melt the tension clinging to her bones. When she stepped out, her mirror was fogged over. She wiped it with her towel, humming faintly to fill the silence. And then, the bathroom lights flickered. Just once, but enough for her heart to hitch. She thought it was nothing until she lifted the mirror she used for her skincare routine, one of those small round ones with a ring light around the edge. She held it up casually to check her face, and froze. Her breath caught midair. Behind her, in the reflection, stood Doha, but not as a man. His upper body was human, yes, but from the waist down there was no suit, no legs. Instead, a massive serpent tail, golden, thick, alive. It moved, shimmering under the light, as if breathing. Her throat tightened, her vision blurred. The mirror shook violently in her hands. She turned around so fast she nearly fell, and Doha wasn't there. The door was closed, the room silent. Her heartbeat thundered like a drum in her ears. She stared at the space behind her, empty, completely empty. Yet she knew what she saw. Her voice trembled. "Doha!" No answer. Her hands shook so badly she dropped the mirror. It shattered across the tile floor, pieces scattering like sharp snowflakes. She stumbled backward, gripping the counter to keep from screaming. Then, a soft knock. She looked toward the bathroom door, chest heaving. "Julia!" Doha's voice drifted through gently. Too gently. "I forgot to tell you. I need to leave for a meeting." Her blood turned to ice. "Are you okay?" he asked. She swallowed. "Why, yes. I just dropped something." "Open the door," he said calmly. "Let me see." Her breath locked. Something instinctive, deep, primal whispered, "Don't." "I'm fine," she said quickly. "I'm in a towel. I need a minute." There was a pause. Then the soft, unnerving edge of his voice slipped in. "Very well," he murmured. "But remember, I can always come back." She listened, rigid, as footsteps faded, slow, measured, unnatural. When she pressed her ear to the door, she expected silence. Instead, there was nothing. No footsteps, no door opening, no sound of him walking down the hall. He had simply vanished, just like that, disappeared into thin air. And she knew in her bones. He had been there. He knew she saw, and he was deciding what to do about it. The next morning, Doha returned just after sunrise, immaculate, calm, composed, as if last night never existed. "Good morning, Julia," he said, kissing her cheek. His lips were icy. Julia's chest tightened so hard she almost flinched. "Morning. You look unwell," he said, gently brushing her jawline with a cold fingertip. "Are you ill?" "No," she whispered. "I just didn't sleep much." "There is no need for fear," he murmured. Another sentence that did not soothe. She almost asked him the question clawing at her throat. "What are you?" But the ring on her finger pulsed, cold warning, like it could feel her thoughts. So she said nothing. The signs multiply. That day she became hyper-aware of everything. In mirrors around the house, she caught tiny glitches. Doha's reflection lagging, eyes glowing faintly, his silhouette rippling like heat waves. When she blinked, everything would appear normal again. The vents still hissed at night. The floors still vibrated sometimes. Shadows still slid across walls with no source. And the bracelet on her wrist pulsed, constantly, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. The breaking point. Julia waited all day for Doha to leave that night. She needed space. Answers. Something. At 11:11 p.m., he stood at the doorway, exactly on time. "I have to go," he said. "There are matters in motion." She forced herself to nod. He watched her. For too long. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked quietly. A dangerous question, with a dangerous answer. And she didn't know what terrified her more, lying or telling the truth. Before she could respond, he stepped closer. His cold breath moved over her neck. "You do not need to fear the truth," he murmured. "Only the timing." Then he left, silently, instantly, without sound. And Julia finally broke. She follows him, barefoot, shaking. She grabbed her keys and ran outside. She felt the cold night claw at her arms as she watched his car vanish down the road, moving faster, smoother, more silently than any car should. She followed, not quickly, not loudly, but desperately. Doha drove out of the city, toward the dark edge of Miami's outskirts where the lights faded and the trees grew dense, toward the forest, a restricted wildlife zone she'd heard of but never visited. She kept her distance as he parked near a barricaded trail. He stepped out. Then she saw it. His shadow moved before he did, stretching, twisting, thickening. She bit her fist to hold in a scream. Doha walked into the woods, and as the moonlight struck him, his body rippled, like skin melting into scales, like bone reshaping, like something ancient waking. She watched in trembling horror as his lower half elongated, scales shimmering gold under the trees, tail expanding, shifting, coiling. He became the thing she saw in the mirror, fully, magnificently, terrifyingly, a serpent the size of nightmare. But what froze her blood wasn't the transformation. It was the moment dozens of glowing eyes appeared deeper in the forest, watching him, welcoming him, waiting. Julia clamped a hand over her mouth, and in that moment she understood something brutal. Doha wasn't just a monster. He belonged to a world that wasn't meant to be seen by humans. And now she had seen it. Psychological unraveling and the forest truth. Julia ran. She didn't remember the exact moment she turned away from the sight of Doha's transformation. 1 second she was staring at the impossible, the golden, colossal serpent weaving itself through the shadows, and the next, she was sprinting through the dark with tears streaking down her face, branches clawing her skin, her heartbeat pounding so loudly she could barely hear her own breath. When she reached her car, her hands shook so violently she dropped the keys twice before finally managing to shove them into the ignition. She didn't check her mirrors. She didn't turn on the radio. She simply drove, fast, blindly, back toward the city lights. By the time she pulled into the driveway of the house, their house, she felt split in two. One half was in her body, trembling, trying to process reality. The other half was still in that forest, frozen in front of a creature that should not exist. She slammed the door behind her, locked every bolt, dragged a chair under the knob like she'd seen in old horror movies. Her pulse hammered at her throat. Her ears rang with phantom hissing. She sat on the floor and tried to breathe, but the bracelet on her wrist pulsed. Not painfully, but insistently, like a heartbeat pushing against her skin, like it sensed her fear, like it wanted to calm her or warn her. Her mind spun. He's not human. He's never been human. And I married him. The realization crashed through her like a tidal wave. She didn't sleep, not even for a second. Every creak in the house felt like something moving. Every shadow felt watchful. Every flicker of the lights felt like Doha's presence, somehow bleeding into the walls. By sunrise, she looked like she had aged years overnight. Pale, sunken eyes, lips trembling. But she forced herself to stand, splash water on her face, and breathe. She needed answers. She needed someone who'd believe her. She needed Kem. The confrontation. Kem arrived an hour later. Julia didn't call. Kem simply showed up, pounding on the door like she knew something was wrong. "Julia, open up." Julia tore the chair away and flung herself into Kem's arms, sobbing. Kem held her, stroking her hair. Tell me everything." And Julia did. The mirror, the tail, the vanishing, the forest, the eyes, God, the eyes. She expected Kem to laugh or accuse her of hallucinating. But Kem didn't. Kem went still, completely still. "Julia, you're not crazy." Julia pulled back. "What?" I felt something every time he was near. Something cold. Something wrong. Kem swallowed. I didn't say anything because I thought maybe I was overreacting. That maybe I was jealous or stressed or misreading things. Julia stared, hope and terror mixing inside her. "But this is something else," Kem whispered. "You need to leave him." "I can't." Julia's voice cracked. "The ring, Kem. The ring hurts when I try to take it off. Tightens. And the bracelet. It pulses whenever I think of running." Kem grabbed her wrist, examining the bracelet. "This thing is not normal. We need to cut it." "No." Julia yanked her arm back. "You can't. It's like it's part of me now." Kem's eyes widened. "Julia, he bonded you." Julia nodded helplessly. Tears stung her eyes. "What do I do?" Kem's jaw tightened. "We find help. Someone who knows about things like this." Julia laughed bitterly. "Who? A witch? A priest? A reptile expert? Someone," Kem insisted. "We'll find someone." But even as she spoke, a soft vibration shivered through the floorboards. Julia froze. Kem looked around. "What was that?" Julia whispered. "He's coming." "No, he can't know you left the house. He just left a few hours ago." The chandelier above them swayed, very slightly, like something heavy was moving beneath the foundation. Kem grabbed Julia's hand. "We're leaving right now. Get your shoes." But Julia couldn't move. Not because she didn't want to, because the ring tightened. Her breath hitched as pain shot up her arm. She fell to her knees with a gasp. "Julia!" Kem knelt beside her. "What's happening?" Julia clutched her hand, tears blurring her vision. It doesn't want me to go." "The ring," Kem whispered. Julia nodded, sobbing. "It's like it burns when I try to leave. Like it knows I'm scared. Like it's trying to control me." Kem's expression hardened. "This isn't a marriage. It's a trap." Julia swallowed. "Kem, he's not just a creature. He's part of something bigger. I saw them. The other eyes in the forest. There were so many." Kem paled. "He's not alone?" "No," Julia shook her head violently. "He's never been alone. The truth in the forest. That night, Julia didn't wait for Doha to come home to leave again. She knew she couldn't run far, but she needed to see the truth clearly, with her own eyes, without fear blocking her vision. Kem insisted on going with her. They drove back to the forest, stopping at the trail where Julia had watched Doha vanish into the shadows. The forest felt wrong. Too quiet, too still, too aware. Every branch looked like a twisted limb, every root like a coiled body. Kem whispered, "Julia, are you sure we should be here?" "No," Julia whispered back, "but I need to know how much danger I'm in." They stepped carefully through the undergrowth, following faint drag marks, wide serpentine trails etched into the soil. The deeper they walked, the colder it became. Julia's breath misted in the air. Kem was shaking beside her. And the trees, God, the trees, they seemed to lean in. Then they heard it. A low, rhythmic hiss, deep enough to vibrate in their bones. Julia clamped her hand over her mouth. She recognized it immediately. Doha. But another sound rose beneath it. Hissing. Multiple hisses. Layered. Surrounding. Approaching. Kem whispered, "Julia, we're not alone." Julia grabbed her hand. "We need to leave." But as they turned, branches snapped. The ground rustled. Shadows shifted. And dozens of glowing eyes blinked open in the darkness between the trees. Julia's scream died in her throat. The eyes stared, unblinking, unmoving, watching them. Kem whispered, trembling, "We need to run." But Julia couldn't move, because something massive glided between the trees, the golden shimmer unmistakable even in darkness. Doha, returning, hunting, and he was not alone. The revelation, the choice, and the awakening. The forest held its breath. At least, that's how it felt to Julia. Like every leaf, every branch, every grain of soil had gone silent, waiting for something ancient and inevitable to occur. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure the glowing eyes scattered through the trees could hear it. Her grip tightened around Kem's hand, nails digging in. Kem didn't flinch. Her own eyes were wide with terror, but her body stayed rigid, protective. "Don't move," Kem whispered. Julia didn't intend to. Something vast shifted behind the veil of trees. The unmistakable glide of Doha's enormous serpent form sliding across leaves and roots, each movement deliberate, heavy, and impossibly smooth. The golden shimmer of his scales illuminated parts of the forest like broken fragments of moonlight. Julia felt herself trembling uncontrollably. Not from the cold, not from the forest. From him, Doha emerged fully into view. A towering serpentine figure, half shadow, half gold, larger than she had remembered. His eyes glowing with a predatory intelligence. He was both monstrous and mesmerizing, a contradiction carved from ancient myths. But when his gaze locked onto Julia, something softened. "Julia," he said, or rather, the forest shaped the sound for him. His voice wasn't human anymore. It was deeper, resonant, vibrating through the air like a low hum that rattled inside her bones. Julia stepped back, gripping Kem's arm so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Doha, don't come closer." He stopped immediately, coiling his massive body beneath him like a living monument. "I will not harm you." Kem laughed under her breath, not out of humor but disbelief. "You expect us to believe that?" Doha's gaze flicked toward Kem. Quick, assessing, curious. "Your fear is justified. You see truth where others do not. Which is why you must not interfere." "Over my dead body," Kem whispered. "Do not tempt fate," Doha warned, a subtle hiss threading through his words. Julia stepped in front of Kem instinctively. "No, leave her alone. This is between us." Doha lowered his head slightly, as if bowing in acknowledgement. "Correct. It is." Julia swallowed hard. Her voice nearly cracked. "Why did you bring me here?" "I did not bring you," he said. "You followed me." Her stomach nodded. He wasn't wrong. She did follow him, but that didn't explain the dozens of glowing eyes still watching from between the trees like silent witnesses. "What are they?" Julia whispered. Doha glanced toward the forest behind him, as if giving silent permission. The eyes blinked. Shapes shifted. Figures moved, but not fully into view. Their forms stayed half-concealed, elongated silhouettes with gleaming scales and deliberate movements. They were serpents, yes, but something else. Smarter, older, standing halfway between worlds, observing but not interfering. "They are my kin," Doha said. "The last of what remains." Julia felt her lungs tighten. "Your family?" "Yes. But earlier, you said your family was gone." "In your world, yes." His voice softened. "But we do not belong entirely to your world." It sounded impossible. It sounded insane. But after everything Julia had seen, nothing seemed impossible anymore. Kem whispered, "Julia, we need to leave. Now." Doha's body shifted, just enough to block the path subtly. "She cannot leave." Julia's breath stuttered. "Can't? Or shouldn't?" "Both," Doha said. Kem stepped forward. "She's going with me. I don't care what you are. Move." Doha didn't react with aggression. He didn't bare fangs or hiss. Instead, he looked sad. "You do not understand what happens if she leaves," he said. "Then explain." Julia snapped, tears burning behind her eyes. "Explain everything. No more half-truths. No more cryptic warnings. Tell me what I married." Doha's form rippled, scales tightening, muscles coiling, the serpent body compressing. And then, slowly, painfully, his form began to shift again. Bones cracked, skin reshaped, light warped around him. Within moments, Doha stood before her once more in human form. Tall, elegant, immaculate. But now she knew what lay beneath that facade. He stepped closer, slowly, gently, hands open. "I am not a threat to you, Julia. You lied to me." Her voice trembled, brittle as glass. "You married me without telling me what you are. You tied me with this ring. You bound me to something I never agreed to." He didn't deny it. Instead, he whispered, "Because if I told you before I knew you were ready, you would have run, and the world you live in would not have protected you." "I don't understand," Julia said. Doha's eyes softened with centuries of grief. "Julia, creatures like me are hunted, feared, destroyed. We survive by living in shadows. We survive by bonding with someone who sees us and does not break." Kem stiffened. "So you chose Julia to protect yourself?" "No," Doha's voice deepened. "I chose her because she was already connected to us long before she was born." Julia froze. "What does that mean?" "The bond recognizes lineage. Your ancestors once walked with us. You are the last of them." The forest exhaled. An eerie rustle, as if the trees themselves murmured in agreement. A shiver ran through Julia. The bracelet pulsed, as if responding to his words. Kem shook her head. "Julia, don't listen. This is manipulation." "Is it?" Doha asked quietly. "Or is it truth you've been shielded from?" Julia pressed her hands against her temples. "I don't know what to believe." "Then choose," Doha said softly, stepping closer. "Choose to see. Choose to understand." Julia whispered, "And if I choose to leave?" The forest went silent. Doha's expression darkened. Not with anger, but with sorrow. "Then the bond will break. And when it breaks, everything tied to you breaks with it." "What does that mean?" Julia asked, voice barely a breath. "You will lose your protection," Doha said. "And they," he glanced toward the glowing eyes, "will not allow an unbound descendant to walk away." Kem's breath hitched. "Julia, you're saying, if you leave, they'll hunt you?" Doha didn't answer. He didn't need to. Julia felt the truth settle like ice beneath her skin. Her choices were no longer between staying or leaving. They were between survival and annihilation. Doha extended his hand, human, pale, trembling slightly. "Come with me," he whispered. "Tonight, I will show you everything." Tears rolled down Julia's face. Not from love, not from loyalty, from the crushing understanding that the world she thought she lived in was gone forever. She took one step toward him. Kem squeezed her arm. Julia, please, don't. Julia looked at her best friend, the only piece of her old life she had left, and whispered through tears, I don't have a choice. Doha's hand closed around hers. Warm this time, almost human. Thank you, he murmured. The forest stirred. The eyes faded. The cold softened. And the bond sealed itself around her, not through force but acceptance. As Doha led her deeper into the forest, toward the truth she could no longer outrun, Julia realized the most terrifying part wasn't that her husband wasn't human. It was that a part of her wasn't either. And tonight she would finally learn why.